All right, we're about to march now. But first, I'd like to get everybody up here as close to the stage as we can. I'd like to introduce a special guest.
We're not doing a group hug, are we?
We can all hug if you want to hug. I know it's hot, though. Okay. The next guest is such an inspiration to me. I'm just overjoyed that he's able to be here and speak to us today. He's the voice of the next generation. He is a 10th grader at Padilla High School.
Oh my God, I could.
He wrote the poem White Boy Privilege. It's had over 10 million views worldwide.
That was him.
It's had an honor to speak around the country. And he's got a few words to say, and he's introducing a new poem today. So if you would all welcome Royce Mann.
Thank you for your service, Royce.
Thank you, everyone. First off, I want to say I'm incredibly honored to be here and to be a part of this really important march. And a shout out to the previous speakers. They're all justice fighters that I really look up to. And the ones who are currently running for office, please look into their campaigns. They're really great. And so yeah, thank you for having me here. And one of the things that I've seen as a major rallying cry today and since Trump got elected is that we can't go back. That we can't let the administration undo progress that has been made. And that I totally agree with that sentiment, but on top of that, we should not only prevent regression, but we also have to create progression, because it's important that we not become content with the state of our nation right now. This country right now, it is not a fair and equitable place, and it never has been. We've made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And although our tactics need to be malleable, we always need to have the goal of equity and justice for all and nothing less. And so I just urge you to keep fighting for that. Keep your eyes on that goal. There are a lot of people right now from the top down who are trying to prevent that, who are trying to push things back and stop us from fighting for equity and justice for all. And we just have to fight harder. We have to march more. We have to call our elected officials more. We have to do everything with more passion. And it can be tiring sometimes. I know there are times that I wake up and I don't want to go to a protest, that I have a lot of homework. I don't want to go out and march. I don't want to have to take the time out of my day to call my elected officials to sign petitions. But we have to remember that being able to fight for this in this way, it is all a major privilege, and we have to use that to try to achieve that end goal. And we also have to be very purposeful in not only what we are fighting for, but also what we are fighting against. A friend of mine, a kid named Talik Tillman, who's doing some great work with a startup business that he has that does equity and inclusion education. I think he summed it up really well. He said that we must fight the systems of oppression. We must fight the systems of oppression, not the symptoms. And so that means that we must get to the root causes of this inequality that we see, many of which lie in policy. We've seen a lot of that since Trump got elected. One of the things I think is really scary about Donald Trump is that although a lot of what he promised on the campaign trail he hasn't been able to get done, there's a lot of it that he has and that he's trying to get done. And those promises that he made on the campaign trail were incredibly scary, whether it was the Muslim ban or recently ending DACA or possibly ending DACA if Congress doesn't step up and do the right thing. And with the transgender ban in the military, that possibility, that a lot of this policy is purposefully directed at marginalized groups. and it is causing this inequality that we see, and so we have to fight that, not the symptoms. And so we have to call our elected officials, we have to march like we are doing today, we have to sign petitions, we have to definitely use our right to vote. That's a right that I'm not yet old enough to use, but that hasn't stopped me. I had the privilege of working for John Ossoff this year, and also I'm working right now for Sachin Vargas for the 89th State House District election. And so I'm not old enough to vote, but I'm still out there supporting the candidates who I believe in. And so I ask you to do the same, and I ask you to use your right to vote, because that's a right that I wish I had, but I don't have yet. And so please don't take that right for granted.
No way, baby. Thank you so much.
And so with that in mind, in a few minutes we're going to go on march and let our voices be heard. But first I want to share a poem that I wrote called Rise Up.
Yeah. Woo.
Let's rise up. Let's rise up with those overlooked and undervalued by society. The black man who walks down the street on the way to his job, it's his first day as an 8th grade English teacher. The same black man who has a son, his most prized possession, who told that son that life will be hard, but anything is possible. The black man who walks down the street on the way to his job, only to pass a woman clutching her purse a little too tightly. Let's rise up with the boy assigned girl at birth. The boy who wore dresses that never felt right, no matter the size, they always seemed too tight. The boy with the parents who loved their daughter, but disowned their son. Let's rise up with the Muslim woman who works for the Justice Department, only to experience injustice every time she wears a hijab. Let's rise up and lend a hand to the boy who can't, the boy who sits in a wheelchair watching the other kids play basketball, the boy who becomes the only one in his class to win an Olympic gold medal. Let's rise up with the woman who was born in the US, whose parents are Dominican and whose son is all-American, so why is she repeatedly told to go back to Mexico? Let's even rise up with the poor white boy. The one who is told he is privileged but doesn't feel that way, and yes, this boy does exist. The boy who talks about the pool his family doesn't have and wears the shoes his mother can't afford. He was given everything right, so it must be his fault. Right, wrong, because as one YouTube commenter said, life can be hard if you're white, but life will never be hard because you are white. Let's rise up with the woman who crossed the border in her mother's arms when she was 3. In search of the American dream, a nightmare is what it's often seemed to be. Nevertheless, she persisted and earned a college degree. Let's rise up with the young Native American poet. She speaks wisdom, but no one listens. The poet who should be up here right now. The poet who instead has to hear a white boy speak for her. Let's rise up. Because once we do, that glass ceiling will be in reach, and trust me, it is breakable. Once we do, we will be able to see over any wall, no matter who pays for it. Let's rise up. Because just wait is never a valid response to injustice. Because inequality thrives at the sight of a head turned away. Because ahead is the only way we can afford to go. Because bystanders are never innocent in the face of oppression. Let's rise up.
Yeah. Let's go.
Let's rise up out of the comfort of our own homes. From behind the shields of our computer screens, let's rise up. Because 140 characters cannot defeat hatred. Let's rise up to our elected officials, onto the streets where change has for centuries been born. Let's rise up.
Yeah. Let's go.
Because if we don't, who will? If we don't, who will? If we don't, no one will. We must have the will to fight. Rosa sat when it meant taking a stand. Martin dreamt and he woke the world up. Barack ran to continue the fight. Now is the time to rise up together as one. Thank you.
Oh,